We have all sorts of reasons to cherish the relationship that we have as a nation and as individuals with India. Strategic, obviously, India and the United States, we have very much aligned security interests. And whether it's an attack on Manhattan or an attack like the one we saw in Mumbai, we are targeted by the same people for similar reasons. This is because we have similar values and ethics with respect to democracy, with respect to secularism and liberty and all of the things that we sort of cherish as our, and we both have very raucous democracies, don't we? I'm here to tell you. We may not be quite as raucous as Indian democracy, but we're getting there. But more than that, you need to spend about 2 minutes in Palo Alto to understand that the ethic of entrepreneurialism, of commitment to engineering and math and science and good, smart, vibrant economic growth is something that the two countries share as well. I've also been to India any number of times, and I just think culturally and everything else think it's wonderful. So thank you in that context for your support. We must continue to nurture this partnership for all the reasons that I just outlined, and if anything, make the countries closer than they are today. More broadly speaking, thank you for your support. We've touched on some very interesting topics tonight. Education, the kind of infrastructure that is set up to support a vibrant economy, that really goes to why I'm interested in being in the position that I am in. We have been we've been repairing a desperately broken economy for the last 2 or 3 years. When I arrived in Washington and was sworn in to become a congressman for the very first time in January of 2009, we were in a crisis that really matched anything that we had seen since the 1930s. The month I was sworn in, that month, January of 2009, this country lost 750,000 jobs. That's basically the population of my entire congressional district. The next month, February, 750,000 jobs gone. And fortunately, through the efforts of the Federal Reserve, through the efforts of some of the fiscal efforts that were made by the Congress, through the sort of natural spark and entrepreneurialism of the American people, we're now out of that. Not in a way that we celebrate. As you know, the numbers are good, but they're not great. We're adding 250,000 jobs a month. GDP growth, people forget, you know, the last quarter of 2008, GDP on an annualized basis in this country shrank by 9%. Now we're growing at 2.5%, 3%. Not anything to write home about, but you know, indicating a turnaround. So we're at a point now where I think we turn our attention to the broader questions of what we as a country want to do to provide the kind of opportunity that is so important to all of us. We're not so much anymore in the mode of, you know, stopping the ship from sinking, but thinking about how can we make the ship better. And here we have radically different visions. And it doesn't have to be radically different, but we do today have radically different visions for how we proceed as a country in doing that. One vision that I share is one where, yes, the free market is the source of vibrancy, it is the engine, but it's a free market that is assisted because we've got good schools that educate people to be economic entrepreneurs, to start businesses. We build good roadways and railways and airports and electrical grids and data grids that allow for a vibrant economy to grow up around it. The other vision is one of getting government entirely out of the picture. Cutting money. The Ryan budget, which I voted against yesterday, would cut investment in our highways and railways by 50%. At a time when the American Society of Engineers tells us that the repair job on our infrastructure in this country is on the order of $1 to $2 trillion. And I mean, this isn't libraries where we could really scratch our chin and say, you know, should we have 6 libraries or 5 or 4 in Stamford? This is, do our highways fall down? Do our bridges fall down? And so we're presented with a very, very radical vision of something that is frankly new to this country. You know, yes, we've always been about free enterprise and market economics, but let's think about the sources of wealth. You know, the internet, which, you know, probably has $1 trillion in value associated with it, with all the companies and jobs and whatnot. The internet was not invented by Al Gore, but it was invented by DARPA. DARPA, of course, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. The GPS that some of you used to get here today, that's 31 satellites that were put up there by the Defense Department. You know, our public schools. I could go on and on about the proper role of government in creating the kind of economic vibrancy that we've had, and therefore providing opportunity to people. So let's have a good discussion, but let me just touch on three projects that we must do. One, the Republicans are absolutely right, and in fact it's not just the Republicans, but it is absolutely true that we have a major project to get our budget and our debt and our entitlements in order. Yesterday I was one of 38 members of the House who voted for a budget that reflected the Simpson-Bowles proposal, full of really bad stuff that I don't ever want to talk about, because all of the things we need to do to adjust our budget are not fun to talk about. It's fun to talk about lowering taxes and increasing spending. It's not much fun to talk about the reverse, but that's of course what we must do. And so now that we're sort of not in an economic emergency, we have to, and I think we will in December, and I'm happy to talk more about that, turn our attention to a plan which gets us balanced again. Two other projects that we must do. Education. I've already mentioned it a few times. There's nothing that we can do, privately or publicly, more valuable than making sure that we are not back number 20 on math scores, number 35 on high school graduation internationally, but number one. Number one in all of these things. This is how we will have more Palo Altos and New Yorks and Bostons and vibrant entrepreneurial communities. I believe that innovation is a function of the quality of one's education. And there's a lot we can and must do because we're deep in the pack, frankly, internationally, when it comes to the kind of scores. And you cannot be deep in the pack and expect to be number one economically and ultimately strategically. Point one. The other one that I think one of the great national projects, and this relates to education in many ways, but shame on us for not, after generation of talking about it, putting in place an energy policy that would, and I'm not talking about $4.25 gas. Guys like me love to talk about that and blame it on the president or blame it on Bush or blame it. Baloney. You know, I draw the parallel with the internet. You know, the wealth that was created in this country, the jobs and the economic vibrancy that came out of the IT revolution was staggering, but it's going to pale in comparison to the revolution that is coming on clean and sustainable energy sources. That's essential. And you know what? China is number one in photovoltaics. And I can't tell you that photovoltaics are the future. I don't know. I don't know if it's that or biomass or what is it. But I can tell you that I'm not comfortable with China being number one on photovoltaics. We are at risk of lagging rather than leading that revolution that is going to make the IT revolution pale in comparison. We tried in the last Congress to pass a bill that would have, I think, in many ways spurred the free market to invest in and drive us towards a clean energy future. It saddens me, frankly, because, again, it's not even about $4.25 gas. It's about, do we create that wealth here and start the businesses here and really lead the world, or do we follow for the first time in our history? It's also about strategic considerations. I am tired of importing oil from places like Saudi Arabia. I am very concerned about the extent to which our economy is hostage to possible uncertainty in the Persian Gulf right now. So it's one of those no-brainers where hopefully when we get beyond the kind of partisan stalemate and insanity that has seized Washington in the last couple of years, that we'll all agree that this is not a partisan issue. This is something we must change. I'm optimistic. I really am. I've probably been in Congress for the three most difficult and economically and politicized years that you can, and I'm not unaware that we have a 12% approval rating in the United States Congress. But you know, Winston Churchill once has a great quote, which is, "The Americans do the right thing after they've tried everything else." And I think he's right. You know, we're going to have a couple of years of craziness, and but we'll get it right in the end. This is what we do. I mean, you know, we are entrepreneurial. We are very vibrant. We have an engine that is about solving problems and you know, providing opportunity. And you know, as we come out of this economy, I do think our politics will become more moderate, more centrist, and we'll get back to doing what we've historically done so well. So, thank you all. I'm deeply grateful for your support. And yes, let's talk about anything and everything. Happy to take questions.